It's my pleasure to introduce Shira Abel. I believe a friend of mine already. Actually, I met Shira for first time in Cologne, and she was doing great presentation on startup marketing, and I went there and listened. And this was probably one of the few presentations during I did take notes. You know, sometimes you listen to people and say, yeah, okay, yeah, I know that, I've listened to that. But during her presentation, I was really taking notes. And that's why I decided to go and approach her, even though she was surrounded by, you know, the cool guys, and it was kind of difficult to get to her. And I invited her to come over, and I'm very happy that she's here. She is American,
originally,
who lives in Israel. And I don't know how many of you know that, like, Israel is the startup nation. You have probably heard about it, and it's like the second to the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So the scene is huge. And guys, we have two seed funds, like Munchcap and 11, they have like probably 800. I don't know how many. Like, if you have an idea, you need to be really clever, and you need to have like a high-tech idea, a lot of technology involved. And we have outsourcing centers for HP and, you know, you name it. And they have the research and development centers in Israel. So you need to really listen to her. She works with startups and does lots of marketing and PR. And she has a great presentation for you. So listen, take your pads and take notes. Shira, it's your time.
Thanks. Hi. I actually like speaking with people instead of to them. So I'm going to be watching the audience, and I want you to raise your hand and interrupt me if you have a question at any time during this presentation. Now, with that said, I realize that this is not something that's typically done in Europe. Realize, I'm American and I live in Israel. There's nothing you can throw at me that I can't handle, and you know, I'm also very used to being interrupted. So feel free, really, seriously, feel free to raise your hand and ask a question while I'm giving my presentation. So let's get started. And that's not working. How do I get this to go? Where is it? I don't know. Fantastic.
Hey, we need help with the clicker. Is it a mouse?
Yeah.
No. Come on.
Do you have any other clicker in the room?
You know what? Just let me do it from the mouse. Yeah, just let me do it from there. It's fine.
Sorry about that, guys. Tech issues. But we'll be fine. You just got a preview of the presentation. It's like in the movies.
No, seriously, just let me just do it from here. I don't care.
Yeah.
Get it where it was before? No.
Can you restart the program from the computer?
All right, so while we're doing this, why don't we just start answering questions while they're figuring out the tech, because this is otherwise a waste of your time. So, okay, any questions? Wants to start off while they're figuring out the tech? All right, go.
I understood. My name is Tanya Boyajieva, and I'm a people manager and people consultant. I understood that 62% of startups fail because of people issues, because of problems in the team.
Right.
And I would like you to comment that and also to offer some strategies.
Oh, okay, so that's an interesting one and a really rough one to answer, especially since I usually focus on marketing and not HR. But as I've worked with startups now for 15, I've worked in startups and with startups now for about 15 years, I can tell you I've seen so many different situations where you've had an amazing team and a mediocre product, and they've done a fantastic job, and you've had a team that didn't get along, and the most fantastic product that launched with product market fit, and the whole thing blew up because the team did not get along. They were an A-list team, but they didn't actually have any type of harmony. So it's really important when you're choosing your co-founders. It's like a marriage. These are people that you need to want to be married to for at least the first 10 years. Because realistically, if you're building a really massive company, it's going to take about 10 years to get it there. And the other thing about it is you also have to want to be married to your investors. So if you feel like an investor is taking over, or there's somebody that is a little too pushy, or they're just, your chemistry's not right, don't take their money. Don't be so hungry for the money that you end up screwing your entire company for it. It's not worth it. Okay, another question. The best marketing tip I can give? What is the best marketing tip?
To any startups, what's the secret thing for any startup to do?
Don't start spending too much money until you reach product market fit. Spend enough so that you get in customers and you can get started and you can test and see what works and what doesn't. And then from there, once you've got product market fit, so product market fit is when 40% of your active users would be really, really unhappy tomorrow if you were to disappear. Okay? So they'd be like crying, unhappy, complaining if you disappeared tomorrow. So when you've got that 40%, then you could start putting money in. But before that, you're spending money just to be able to pull in enough people to test and iterate and make the product better. But before that, if you put in a lot of money, you'll kill your product. First of all, your burn rate will be too high. Second of all, what happens is somebody comes in, they may not like the product, if you don't have product market fit, it's not where it should be, right? So if you don't have product market fit, you're gonna release your product, people are gonna use it, they're not gonna come back. So you could have, in 6 months, the most amazing product in the world, but if you have too many people who come in the very, very beginning and you're not there yet, then it ends up being a problem later on. How do you get them to come back?
200% true, Shira.
Yeah. So that would be probably the biggest push that I can tell you. You want to bring in some users. You have to have them in order to do all of your testing. But once you've got product market fit, that's when you do the major push. Questions? More?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
I was just wondering, I don't know if that's politically correct or not, but if that is what I'm going to ask you is politically correct, but
okay.
How do you assess the fact that you're a woman and the effect it has for you being so great at what you do with startups?
Okay, being female in tech. Well, I'm an old school geek. My first job in tech, so this is a funny story. My first job in tech was working at Rich FX, which was back in the day WebGlide. And I had to take a test on HTML. This was 15 years ago, 16, something like that. And I had to take a test on HTML, and there was also some Star Wars questions on the test. And apparently I was the first one to answer all the Star Wars questions correctly. I thought I got the job because of my blonde hair, but it turns out that I actually got the job because of the Star Wars questions. So I've always been the female among the geeky guys. So for me, it's never been a big deal. And like 20 years ago, I was on IRC while I was getting my undergraduate degree in fashion. So once I got into tech, it was a really comfortable world for me. And it's not a meritocracy. Everyone says it is, it's not, that's bullshit. But if you push forward and you really work hard and put a lot of effort, you can move forward. It's not like it's impossible to do.
Sure you can, you're the living proof.
Thank you. Okay, more questions? Yes.
Hi. As a co-founder of a 3D printing startup, I'm interested in how do you measure the effects of the marketing on a startup?
Okay. So 3D printing, you've got an actual object as opposed to a web service. So for you, it's a matter of where people are coming through your website and where the funnel is going, and I'm assuming you want them to check out. Yes? Okay. So you watch where the funnel goes. You watch the analytics. Is this thing finally working? Oh, yay! Okay, so I'll answer your question first, and then I'll get to this. So what you want to do is you want to watch where the right traffic is coming from. Okay, so if you're getting people, say, through LinkedIn, or you're getting people through forums, you watch where the traffic comes from, you watch where it goes through your site, and you watch where you lose them on the way to the checkout, or wherever place you actually want them to go on your site. And for you, probably, I'm guessing it's probably not a cheap item, so your sales will probably be more along the lines of face-to-face. So with that, it would be more of, okay, you use the web for kind of getting to know who your customer is and having them get to know you. So it's a part of branding, it's a part of brand equity, but it's not necessarily your sales process. So then it would be a matter of, while you're going to the conferences, use your website to be backup and for brand leadership or knowledge leadership in the industry. So that'd be the blog, that'd be the newsletter. It would not be about your company, because nobody really gives a shit about your company, sorry. But they do care about their own industry. So they'll sign up to your blog if your blog has a whole bunch of helpful information for them. And then from there, you can end up growing your base, growing the reciprocity. And I'll get through that actually at the B2B part of this presentation, which I will now start now. Okay, yay, okay. Hunter and Bard, this is my agency, I'm the CEO, and we help companies. In this particular case, it was an animation company where all of the traffic was going to the commercial YouTube channel. The person who would handle the marketing before me had a background in SEO and SEM, and he tried to game the system. Now, all of our traffic came from social, and when you try to game social, it's not optimized, because social shouldn't be gamed. So we changed our methodology of engagement and doubled our revenues and doubled our views on our commercial YouTube channel. Okay, so that's just a little bit of what we do. That's me. I am a mentor at the Google campus, Microsoft Accelerator, Founder Institute, Seed Camp, etc. I cover Israeli startups for the Next Web. I've been in Israel for about 16 years now, and I've been working in tech for about that whole time. What are you looking for? You're looking for that unfair advantage, okay? Something that gets you ahead of everyone else. How are you going to do it? Well, this is just stuff. I make very ugly decks so that you can go afterwards and read it and understand what's going on, as opposed to a very pretty deck with a lot of pictures that you look at afterwards and went, fuck, I didn't get that. What was that? So all the information is in the deck. The deck will be on SlideShare, and you'll be able to look at it afterwards. There's no need for you to have to take a picture, because it's there. Okay, so marketing starts at the very second you conceptualize the product. What's your strategy? So what are you going to be making? Everything has to go from strategy down. So strategy is what you say no to. You can't do everything. You don't have unlimited resources. You have to think to yourself, okay, I have this much. I only have 3 people in my company. How are we going to do this, this, and this? We can't go after every market. We have to go after one market. You can't, you've got the choice to be the company that started at the same time as Groupon with the same idea, or be Groupon. Groupon started with one city. Got the city, went on to the next city. Got the city, went on to the next city. So when you focus, you can conquer. If you're all over the place, you'll die. It's very simple. Okay. So you start with the business objective. In this case, it would be improving financial performance. And the long-term business metric is to lower your need of ads. Okay? To do that, you start building content. The nice thing about content is, even if you stop building the content, all that content is there and already pulling people in with search engine result pages, okay, in the SERPs. So when you Google something, you come up, and it pulls people in even when you're done. On the other hand, when you stop paying for an ad, all your traffic stops, okay? You don't build things up with that. So one way to reduce your long-term financials is to start doing content marketing. This is an example of a business objective. And this is one company that did it. They got, this is actually an app, Fujikate. Hemi's a friend of mine, and they've brought in most of their traffic through a great blog. Okay, this you can look up later, you can look up that later, and the holy trinity of marketing online. Yes, I do kind of do this like a class. Okay, at the center of everything is good product. If you do not have a good product, you don't really have much of anything. Okay, you will die. So that is why you need to do test and iterate, and get to product market fit. The fastest way to kill a bad product is through good marketing. That means if you bring a lot of people in and everybody hates what you have, nobody will come back and you're dead. So don't do that. Make sure that your product is good, and then you'll be able to get somewhere. Same thing works in the trinity of mobile marketing. You've got earned media, reviews and PR, social integration, SEO and ads. I'm going to get into all of those in a minute. Starting with here, performance measurement, you could read that later. That's MBA stuff. Marketing for the concept phase. Okay, you need to build the marketing into the product. Now, what does that mean? If you've got a hardware product, that's one thing. But if you've got software as a service or you've got an app, there needs to be something in there that gets people to come back and use your product on a regular basis. If you have an app, you have to realize that your competition isn't just the other people in the same space as you, but your competition is every other app, period. Because when I'm on my phone, I only have so much time. So when I used Path, my time on Instagram went down. When I used Pinterest, my time on everything else disappeared. I'm a little addicted to Pinterest. So you have to think to yourself, all right, if I'm building an app, and my app needs to be a habit, it's not a utility, okay, for specific situations, then what am I doing in order to build the habit into the product? We're going to get to that. While you're in the concept phase, you want to get to know influencers on Twitter that are in your area of interest, all right? That means you get to know the media. You start testing assumptions. An example of this, Dropbox did ads to landing pages. They tested all of their messaging. They tested all their messaging and a whole bunch of ideas of what people wanted in their product while they were building it before they even launched. So by doing that, you can actually test and find out exactly what people are looking for before you launch and build your product through actually what people want. Because if you ask people what they want, they don't know. And they're going to either tell you what they think you want to hear or tell you what they think they know, but they don't really. So the only way you're going to get an honest answer is when they don't know they're being tested. And the way to do that is to do ads to a landing page or to a page that they don't realize is a landing page, take them through the entire sales process and to the point of buy. There are companies that do that. I recommend if you're going to do that for the US, you pick an IP somewhere in the Midwest. You don't do this all over, and you test it with a small base, not a huge one, okay? And then you send them a t-shirt afterwards and a nice warm thank you, because it kind of pisses people off. As I said before, at the beginning, the goal should be product market fit. That's 40%. 40% is gold. How do you test your idea? You come up with an MVP. How many of you know what an MVP is? Oh, good. Okay, for those of you who don't know what an MVP is, I highly recommend you read The Lean Startup. Yes, you have homework. So you read The Lean Startup, and the other one would probably be Okay, that's a good one. So Steve Blank, Startup Owner's Manual, Startup Owner's Manual, Dutch accent. Okay. This is how you test your idea. So take them all the way down to buy, and then once you've got reach, you do the big launch. Now, apps are a little different. With apps, it's actually more important that you come out with a big bang, because you have to take the power of the app store, be it Amazon or Apple, okay? And when you first launch your app, you actually, for each download you actually get more credit. Okay, so for the first few hours, each download is equal to 8 or 6, whatever, but it's equal to more than 1. Then you go 6 hours in, and it gets a little bit less. And for the first 48 hours, though, your push means so much more than it does after 48 hours when then it's 1-to-1. So if you're going to launch and do a soft launch with an app, you're going to have to spend a lot of money later on your hard launch. If you don't have that money, the alternative, and yes, I do have one, here's how you test your idea on mobile. You pick a country, and you come up with a different name, and you do your app there, and you do product, and you just iterate and iterate until you have product market fit. So you pick a smaller country in Europe, and you test and test and test your app. And then once it's actually where it needs to be, you see the retention rate at the 40%, and you know that you're at product market fit, then you rebrand it and you launch it full force in the World App Store, and then you start to localize it for the different app stores in order to grow your market. So this is how you do it for an app. It's a little bit different than you would do it for a website. And alpha phase. Okay. You need to start building up your base. You need to start building up buzz. One great way to do that is through content and a blog and the newsletter. Email marketing has the highest ROI of all digital marketing. It's old school, it works. There's a reason why spam still exists, okay? It does work. So whether you like it or not, that's a great way to build up your blog and build up your base of people who are actually interested in your product. Now, one thing about content, as I said before, nobody cares about your actual company. Don't write about, oh, we went to this event, and oh, we did that, and oh, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. Unless you're like the most amazing writer in the world, and somehow you can make that interesting for people who don't actually know who you are. So if you want people who don't know who you are to be interested in your product, you have to talk about the industry that they're in. So Fujikate, who I mentioned before, Fujikate has a blog about food and about nutrition and really nothing about Fujikate itself. But it's interesting to their core audience, and it's grown significantly and grown their base because of that. And it actually works for apps and web. Launch phase. Okay, all those media people that I told you to follow on Twitter before, this is when you go back to them. Now, you've already been talking to them, and you hopefully get to know them. They have an idea of who you are. By this point, you go to them and say, okay, we're going to be launching. Would you like to look at my product? You don't push it on them. You ask nicely, and you make an email really short and just say, hey, we're doing this, and here it is. And don't go after them during CES. Don't go after them during South by Southwest. Don't go after them when Apple is launching anything or Google is launching anything. Make sure it's a slow news day. And pray that no natural disasters happen that take all of the news away from your product and onto somewhere else. Because that will, you will have no noise, you'll have no buzz. So try to do it during a slower time of the year, and then you'll have much higher chance of success of actually being covered. Now, you could also attempt an act of virality. And so nothing is guaranteed, but you can definitely try it. Sample tactics, you could look at that later. Product market fit, you go after mass users. Earned media and PR. Earned media and PR has about a 40% trust rate. Now, what do I mean by that? Think about how you buy, okay? And the first time you hear about something, you're not willing to buy it. Okay, you're gonna just go, okay, you know what, I don't know about this, unless you're an early adopter and then you're frothing at the mouth at the next new thing. But generally, most people are not early adopters, and that's why it takes a while for a product to gain critical mass. So you hear about something the first time, and you think to yourself, okay, I don't know what I think of it, and you let it go. And then you hear about it again and again and again, and you hear about between 10 and 100 times, depending on how sensitive you are to it, before it actually gets to a place in your brain where it says, okay, yeah, this is something I'm willing to trust in order to try it. And once you get there, then you're actually ready to buy. So this is where you have to get your users. Now, how do you do that? Earned media and PR, this is getting mentioned in blogs, on TechCrunch, on the next web, wherever, okay, all of this helps get you to that place. And it's your initial push. It has about a 40% trust rate, okay? And with that, you get closer to be able to get your market. You may not see results from it in the very beginning because it does take time for people to trust what you've got. What you're gonna see is a spike. You're going to see a spike of traffic from all the early adopters who go in, look at it, decide it's not for them, and then you're going to go right back down again. Okay? So if you've got something that's, say, for mommy bloggers, and you have a mention on TechCrunch, people are going to go in and look and leave. You're not going to actually get traction from it, but you will get, you'll get social proof. You'll be able to put TechCrunch on your homepage or the next web on your homepage. And from that, it makes your investors feel better, or other investors come to you, okay, if you're looking for money. And it does help. Yeah, it does. And And in that way, and it also makes you more trustworthy for the media that doesn't go after, the early adopters. It's like, okay, well, if these guys think you're okay, maybe we'll cover you. So it also gets your foot in the door for others later on. The next one would be SEO, affiliate media buy, and ads. Ads have about a 14% trust rate. It's low, but let's face it, it's an ad, okay? So you're not gonna necessarily trust every ad that you see. But you need to pull people in the beginning, and nobody knows you exist, so ads are the quickest way to be able to do that. Relationship marketing has a 70% trust rate. That's when a friend recommends it, or you see it on Twitter or Facebook from somebody else's feed. This is really powerful stuff, and it's the stuff that you want to build up. It's the evangelists talking about how much they love your product. Now, my favorite bit, behavioral engineering. But before we get to this, questions? Any? Oh, all right. What was the most amazing startup? How to go viral? Okay, how did Apple do it without product market fit? I would actually say Apple didn't always do it. Because if you think about it, they had the Newton. They had a whole bunch of failures. They didn't always win it. They nailed it with the iPad. They've nailed it with the iPhone. But these were actually iterations of previous products. So they haven't always nailed it. They knew what they were doing by the time they got there. Let's put it like that. But the Newton was, what, in the 80s or early 90s? Yeah, something like that. No, Newton was before. Yeah, the Newton was 88. Have you ever worked on a product where it was so critical to spur viral growth? Well, you could say that every product is like that, but the fact of the matter is, until you get to product market fit, and we work with a lot of really early stage, so until you get to product market fit, we do a lot on working with the company on the marketing, but as well as the product. So we'll go through the analytics, figure out where people are getting lost and why, and we'll also help on the product itself. And from that, okay. Now, behavioral engineering, what is it? It's getting people to do the behaviors that you would like them to do optimally. Now, you can't force anyone, obviously, okay? You're not holding a gun to anyone's head, God forbid, but you are trying to lead them by the hand into your website to wherever it is you want them to go, be it checkout or buy or contact us or wherever, okay? Or be it, a commercial YouTube channel. You want to lead them nicely over to the place you want them to go. How do you do that? Well, you do it through simplicity. Make it really, really, really simple. When you're writing things on your Facebook page, you ask for one thing at the end of it. Like this post, or click here, or share this. But one, not three. When you ask for three, you get analysis paralysis and people do nothing. So when you give people too many options, you lose them completely. But when you ask for one thing, and you ask for it simply and directly, you're more likely to get it. T-shirt economy. Now what is this? There's a t-shirt economy and a financial economy. I'm going to give you two stories, okay? One of them is Sweden or some country in Northern Europe. They did a test, and the test was they went to people in a city. They chose random groups of the same number in the city, and they asked them questions. One question they asked was, we have to put a nuclear power plant somewhere in Sweden, and for the good of the country, are you willing to let us put it outside of our fair city? Okay, so that's what they asked one group. And then the other group, they asked and they said, we have to put a nuclear power plant somewhere in our country, and are you willing to let us put it in outside of our city for 6 weeks of your annual salary? Okay, now how many people think that those who were offered the money, more people said yes out of those who offered the money? One guy. All right, you guys are good. You're right. The other side, the ones who did it for the good of the country, were actually the ones who said yes. 50% said yes for the good of the country, 25% said yes for the good of themselves. It's because when we already have enough money to live, and we've got our basic needs met, we don't view things in, then it's like, okay, is it worth it for me? Because I don't need this. So is it going to give enough? Well, you know what? It's not worth it for me to have that nuclear power plant that could have a meltdown and destroy everything, including myself, outside of my town for 6 weeks' salary. On the other hand, we're more selfless when we do things for the good of the whole. And it's nice that that actually is the way humans are built. So when you do things for the good of the whole, you're more likely to do it. And that's how you want to build your evangelist base. And that's why this is important. When you pay your evangelists, they're not evangelists. They're working for you. And they're not going to do things the same way, and they're not going to do things for the same reason. So Fisker Scissors, okay, has the Fisker Scissorettes. And Fisker scissors are these sewing scissors, and they have a serrated edge. And there are women who are absolutely obsessed with Fisker scissors. And they ship these women all over the US, and they bring them into the corporate headquarters, and they run forums for them and talk about Fisker scissors in sewing clubs and stores and all of this, and they do it all for free. They do it for free because they love Fisker scissors. Now, they get a bunch of stuff, but they don't get paid. So there's a huge difference there. So they're doing it because of the love of the product, not because they actually want anything from it. They were doing it before Fisker Scissors offered them anything, and they're still doing it now that they get, to shipped around all these different places and get treated really nice and special presents every once in a while from Fisker Scissors. But their incentive has nothing to do with money. Their incentive has to do with their love of the product. Financial economy is when you just think about how much am I getting paid. It's not as powerful. Priming. So priming is when you get people ready to do something. Now, what is this? This is Takipi, another Israeli startup. And what they have here is an icon. But you don't know what that icon is. All it does is open up a picture of a dog. That's it. It opens up a picture of a dog. Why'd they do it? They found that by putting this icon out there, they were actually able to raise the rate of people going to Twitter and Facebook significantly. And they were able to grow their user base or their fan base on Twitter and Facebook. Because why? Once you do that first click, you're more likely to do another click. So it primes people in order to do the behavior that you want them to do. Okay, framing is another example. So last night, we were at one of the two accelerators, and I'm not going to say which one for fear of screwing up which one it was. Wait, it wasn't 11, so it was the other one. It was Launch Hub. So we were at Launch Hub, and I was speaking to somebody at Launch Hub, and he was telling me about his product, and he was telling me about how he's telling VCs about it, and they are an inexpensive way to do X. And then I'm like, well, if there's all these expensive companies out there and they're getting the money for it, why would you want to go after the same market when, and you're leaving money on the table? That's, you don't want to be the low-cost leader. That's not, unless you plan on being a Walmart of X. And he said, no, we're actually going after this market that can't afford that. And I said, okay, your problem is not what your product is. Your problem is your framing. Okay? You don't want to, you're sounding cheap by the way you're doing it now. When in reality, what you're doing is going after an underserved market at a cost that they can afford. And you have a massive underserved market. And this is a beautiful thing to investors, okay? Rather than coming across as the low-cost leader in a market that's totally well-served. So he went, yeah. And I'm sure that his marketing will change completely due to that. It's about how you frame it, okay? If it's not that you are cheap, it's that you are going after a market that is fit for this. And you're going to give them premium services for what they can afford. But it's not going to be the same as the ones who are, if you're an analytics company, and you're going to be offering analytics, and you're going to be a little bit lower than, say, Google Analytics, because somebody can't afford the $150,000 a year for the full fire hose of Google Analytics, and say you're going to be $75,000 a year. So you're going to go after an underserved market, as an example, and but you're still going to be giving a lot of premium services. So it's not that you're cheap; it's just that you're less expensive. Then you're going after a different market. Okay, so once you get people to start coming, how do you get them to come back? So This is actually the most important slide in the deck, and we're going to talk about action triggers now. Everyone has an action trigger, okay? In Israel, the biggest action trigger is achievement. When an Israeli has an exit, even if they make enough money that they never have to work again, everybody's like, okay, what are you going to do now? Nobody actually expects them to never work again. That just doesn't happen. If they just say, I'm planning on never working again, everybody will be like, are you okay? What's wrong? You just don't do that, all right? It's, what are you going to do next? You're going to be doing something next. There's absolutely no way you're not going to do something next. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So I wouldn't even know how to handle somebody who would tell me something like that. That would be Israeli. On the other hand, if you go to Germany, everything is about status, okay? They're a high status culture. The cars are, amazing, and everybody has the most gorgeous watch, and people are very, very well dressed, and everything's very, very, put together. So you've got a high status country. Now, the results of that, in Germany, if you raise money and your company fails, you'll never raise again, not at least in Germany. You're going to have to go somewhere else for the money, because it's high status, and with that status comes fear, and nobody wants to turn into a low-status person, so they take less risk. And that's the reason why I tell Israelis, if you launch your product and the US, already somebody else has launched at the exact same time in Silicon Valley, just move over to Germany. They won't come up with it for 2 more years. It's a simple fact. And I say this in Germany as well, and the Germans go, yeah. They iterate. They don't innovate. So when you're marketing to Germany, you have to market in a different way than you would market in Israel. It just won't be taken the same way. They're status-oriented as opposed to achievement-oriented. There's others that are competition and altruism. The points and levels and challenges and everything on the side are just examples of things you can do. But okay, so I'll give you another example. I have a client, AppSkyzer. If you can do 3 lines of HTML, you can create an Android app through AppSkyzer. All right, so not I, we, my company. So we have a client, AppSkyzer, and we decided to test what the action trigger was of our audience. And we sent out an email that was competition in nature, okay, competitive in nature. And it blew up. It was really bad. We had to write a lot of sorry emails, and it totally blew up in our face, and it was the wrong way to go. But we learned really quickly, and we never did it again. And so we tested achievement, and that went really, really, really well. And it turns out that the people who are making apps on AppSkyzer are actually achievement-oriented. So what did we do? We changed our messaging. We changed our product. We changed even the onboarding process. So we changed all of that. Oh, I don't have a lot of time. All right, I'll get through this quick. So we changed the onboarding process. We changed all of this. Another thing we did, we added a progress bar. Just by adding a progress bar, we were able to raise conversions by over 20% with the same amount of traffic. All right? So that's fantastic. Over 20% of the traffic that was coming in actually converted, and it was just with a simple progress bar. So once you know the action trigger of your customer, you end up building things completely differently. The hook, this is another one. So I'm going to go through this really quick. You've got the trigger. This is when you need to build the habit into your product. So you've got the trigger. The trigger would be, let's say, I'm going to do this for Pinterest. The trigger would be, okay, I get an email from Pinterest. I go into Pinterest. That's the action. The variable reward is me finding pictures that I like inside of Pinterest. Now, every time I find a picture that I like, I get a dopamine rush. And it's like casino slots, all right? Every time you win, you get a dopamine rush. But the thing is that I don't know when I'm going to see the next picture. And that's the reason why I get the rush. If I know that it's coming, I don't get the rush. So since I don't know when it's coming, I go and I scroll, and I'll see 30, 40 pictures, and I don't like any of them, and I see that one, and it's really exciting, and I'm really happy, and I pin it, and I like it, and I put it to a board or whatever. That's my investment, is my time. I go back up, internal, I feel good because I found a bunch of things that I really enjoyed, and that takes me back around. This comes from Nir Eyal. He's an Israeli in Silicon Valley, and he's writing a book called The Hook, and I recommend you follow his blog. He's really good. Okay, another thing is Jack Dorsey, The Power of User Narratives. Just look it up and watch it. He goes through and he does a full story of how people are using the product. And by doing that, you don't have to take pictures. It's all going to be on SlideShare. So you go through and it talks about how he writes the story, and it changes how they actually build the product. So it's really powerful. UX Archive, if you're doing an app, go there. This is awesome. It gives you onboarding processes. It gives you like all the different ways of doing all these different things for your app. Again, think about what their action trigger is, giving an incentive, all of these things, that builds people up. And then, of course, keeping in touch. Email, I've got 11 minutes left. Okay, A/B test. A/B test, or you're leaving money on the table. Always A/B test. Check and see which one converts better. Go read which words are action triggers for people. Do your research. Think about that also while you're thinking of your name for a company. All of this. Don't buy spam. It's not worth it. Keeping in touch, notifications, same thing. Okay. Time of day. Time of day that you send your email and time of day that you send your notifications are actually really, really, really important. With email, people tend to open them within an hour of actually receiving. Same thing with notifications. So time of day really matters. And what did I just do? Oh, there we go. Okay, community, build it into your product. That is marketing inside of your product. Same thing with Pinterest. So app, know your market. Dropbox, they were expecting a couple hundred people on their first day after launching. They got 5,000. Why? They did this really nothing video, okay, that's just going through and clicking, but they put a couple Easter eggs in it. Easter eggs are when you're doing things that are unexpected. So they put something in about a platypus, and they send love songs to Steve Jobs and to Bill Gates. And for the people on Dig, where they placed the video afterwards, it went viral inside of Dig. Now, viral wasn't 50 million, but viral was 5,000 signups, which is pretty awesome for a day when they were expecting only a couple hundred. And viral if you can, but remember, if you don't have product market fit, you'll kill your bad product. So, Dollar Shave Club. The video costs $5,000 to do, but he has a background in improv. He lives in Hollywood. He got all of his friends involved. And so, yeah, it costs him $5,000. It won't cost you $5,000. To do a viral video that's as good as this, you'd have to hire Weed and Kennedy and pay around $500,000. It's just not the same thing, okay? Set your expectations up to reality. So, okay, and we're back to there, wrong one. Watch the funnel. Okay, app family. So if you're doing an app, you've got all these different ways that you can be building traffic. One would be building an app family, have all of the advertising from the different apps going to either one app or going to all of the others. A great example of this would be any Disney game, if you've got kids, which I do. So they're amazing at it. They build all these different characters for basically the exact same game and send you to all of these different places to spend more money, and you're going to do it because it's your kid asking you to, and they win. Localization. Don't do this. Okay, the Chevy Nova. Nova in Spanish means no go. When you localize, make sure that you understand the language, the culture, everything about the place that you're going to localize in. Now, localizing is actually the best way to grow your numbers when it comes to an app, because the individual app stores for different places aren't as competitive as the main, large worldwide app store. So if you're growing your numbers, it's a lot easier to become number one in, say, Spain than it would be number one globally for your app, okay? But when you're going to do that, you have to make sure you name things accordingly, you write accordingly. If you've got pictures of people in your advertising or whatever, you have to make them look like the people from that place, or else your social proof is lost. And so all of this matters. The names of the people, if you're onboarding them and you're giving names in the onboarding process, okay, they have to be appropriate. All of that. Branding. Branding is so important now with apps because the app store is like a supermarket shelf, and if you're not pretty, people will not pay attention. Don't do this. Okay? Do this, which is, of course, done by my company. So, you want to have the best pics inside. You want to have SEO, or App Store optimization, okay? And it's the equivalent. So App Store optimization. The only line that really matters when it comes to people reading it is the first line. Nobody actually reads below that, but the rest of it's all for App Store optimization, so you want to make sure that you utilize that well. And of course, social proof with the ratings and reviews. Get your friends to do it, but on the other hand, make sure that they're doing it well. If you actually want at least one negative review, which makes people trust you more, because if you only have good reviews, it looks fake, okay? And like, if you're gonna have a bad review and your friends are putting the bad review in, make it on something totally benign where they're like, okay, well, I just didn't like the colors. Okay. Okay, how do you turn your app into a habit? Design. Warm and fuzzy feelings. Get that dopamine rush. Make sharing a seamless part of the experience. Again, don't make people work too hard. Gamification. And now B2B. So you could read that later. Sample tactics, you could read that later. Get back to that. No, it's not working. Why did it just die? All right, screw it. I'm just going to talk about this. So LinkedIn. LinkedIn, if you go to LinkedIn and you are looking for someone, okay? You're doing sales and you need to start. Social for B2B is more about either searching for things and finding people or finding out about a market. It's also more about thought leadership, but it's also about finding people. So how many of you know about Rapportive? Rapportiv. Write this one down. Yes, okay. So Rapportive is a plugin in your Gmail, and it on the side of it shows you when you've actually got the right email for someone, because it will show their LinkedIn profile, okay? And in my actual deck, which for some reason I can't get to work, I have my, oh, hey. And can it go back? No, okay. So at the, I have Martin, who's my editor over at The Next Web, and I show how you can get to his email. So Rapportive is something that's really, really important. When you're trying to get to people, there's two ways to do it. One is a way that you can find out their full name through LinkedIn. And that's Rapportive, okay? So you find, once you've got the right email in there, it shows up on the side. And this is something on Gmail. So it's a plugin for Gmail. LinkedIn, you want to get somebody's full name. You're going to be calling them, right? And you're going to be cold calling a company in order to get that first meeting. So how do you do it? Okay? Find out what groups they're in. Now, I have a total brain crush on Rory Sutherland. He's a behavioral economist, and he works at Ogilvy, and he does amazing TED Talks. Yeah, I know, it's fantastic. So with this, what do? You find out what groups they're in, and you go to those groups, you join up, and then you have access to be able to connect to them on LinkedIn. So that's one way to do it. If you don't know their last name, there's another way to do it. So you look them up, you're like, okay, it turns out that Everlane is one of my favorite clothing companies. They're funded by Kleiner Perkins. And so Everlane, you want to find out, okay, what's Michael's last name? I want to call Everlane, I want to call Michael, speak to the founder. So I go through, well, you're not actually going to do that, but never mind. As an example, you go through and you do Michael, founder, builder, Everlane, LinkedIn. Why? Because here, Michael P., founder and builder, LinkedIn, that's how, boom, last name. Go through. So when you want somebody's full last name, that's how you go do it. It's a bug that LinkedIn has. Use the system, okay? And this is just some random stuff I like. If you want to do PR, don't pay somebody for PR before you have product market fit and you're starting to get accelerated growth. Before that, do this. Actually, I couldn't find it this past week, so I don't know whether she's taken it down or not, but go through Colette's other presentations. She gives a lot of great examples to startups on how to do PR, and there's plenty of different articles online. It's not that hard. You can totally do it yourself, okay? And then once you get to the point where you actually need a PR company, it's more for media relations, and it's ongoing because you don't have the time to do it yourself. The next one, I have a thing for reviews. So this would be the best review of all time, and this would be the next best review of all time. And that's it. Questions. We've got 3 minutes for questions. You've got to have one. Come on. Oh, okay. Let's see. Hottest trend in social marketing for 2014. It's all about just making sure that you are as honest and transparent as possible. How should we market something that still does not exist? Well, first of all, you have to make it so that it does exist. And then you have to figure out, who your target market is that's going to use your product, because you're making it for a reason. You're making it for some people. So who are those people? Is it a company? Is it people? And then you have to figure out, why are they going to use it? What are they going to use it for? And once you map all of that out, it's a lot easier to figure out how to market to them. How to go viral? Well, when you talk a lot about your company in your video or whatever it is that you're doing, you're less likely to go viral. When you don't talk about your company, you're more likely to go viral, but you don't get as much brand equity because people don't really understand what you're doing. There's brand awareness and then there's brand equity, and they're not the same thing. Somebody may have heard of your company, but they may not necessarily know what you do. Hearing of them is one thing, and it's good, and it's a start, but knowing what you do is a lot better. That's where you want to take them. How to avoid being viral in order to meet customer expectations with the worst. Okay, how to avoid going viral? Don't go big. Don't be highly offensive so that you end up going viral for the wrong reasons. And just stay on social media and be nice and kind of quiet, I suppose. How to market your service correctly at your own web page. Don't really understand that question. How do you recover after an unsuccessful marketing campaign? Oh, yeah, question, better.
Yeah, thanks. My question is related to time-constrained offers. What's your experience with them and when they are applicable?
Scarcity.
And when not? Yes.
Scarcity. Okay, so scarcity works. Scarcity works really, really, really well when it's something that people kind of want. Then it starts making them really want it. Okay, it does work. You can't do it all the time. But scarcity works well. So we have a limited time offer for this. We'll make sure it really is a limited time offer, because if you end up doing it every other week, people are just going to wait and never come back. The problem with Groupon is that it killed companies' brand equity, and that's what you really have to be aware of, and that's the reason why it didn't do well over the long haul. By giving out that discount, people started to get used to it, and then they simply wouldn't come back until the discount came back. JCPenney had the exact same problem. They changed their model from a lot of sales to simply being low cost all the time. Well, they had already trained their user base, they already trained their client base to expect a sale, and people feel better when they feel like they're getting something at a discount. So when they weren't getting it at a discount anymore, they weren't interested, and their sales plummeted. So when you train them to expect it, they're gonna expect it all the time. And that's the thing where you have to be careful. So if it is a limited time offer and it's only for the week of, say, Christmas, make it only the week of Christmas every year, and that's it. Now, it also means your sales are going to go down come Thanksgiving or November, for you guys here since you don't have Thanksgiving. Your sales are going to start to go down close to the time of it because people are going to expect the same deal the following year, okay? That's the cost of it. So you have to think about the cost before you make the decision. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ivailo Yankov.
Hi.
Hi. Let's forget the apps for a second, the apps business.
Okay.
Can you give us advice when we launch a product and where the, when we want to go premium, for example,
yeah.
How we do position, and we have a new product, how we position the price. You haven't commented this at all.
Okay.
The price factor.
Test and iterate. So you do ads to landing pages. So you do ads to the area that you're planning on selling first, but you take one small IP in that general area, so let's say the Midwest of the US. You test different ones and you see the price elasticity. You take them through the whole process and you see which one, how many you have converting through, and then you figure out, okay, I'm going to make more money if I go with this model versus this model. Even if more people end up going on the one that's really, really cheap, you may be making more because enough people go to the one that's more expensive. So that's all through test and iterate. That's all through the feedback loop. And that would be my recommended way of doing that. Ads to landing pages. The landing pages take you through the buying process, and then you see how many people click through.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At the top, how useful is it to use gamification when it comes to improving engagement? Very. Gamification is behavioral engineering. So yeah, I'd say it's extremely, extremely helpful. Now realize, when I say gamification, it's not necessarily badges or points or levels or anything like this. It's tone, it's scarcity, it's other things that are a little more subtle. In Italy, when you get a traffic ticket or when you get, not a traffic ticket, when you get a ticket for speeding or whatever, your points go down. You actually lose points because they found that loss aversion in Italy is stronger than any other aversion to be able to make sure that people stop speeding. Okay? So you have to know your market and you have to know how to market to them. And that would be, the equivalent of, that's gamifying. When another traffic one, instead of showing a speed sign, and the actual number, they tested it with a happy face and a frown face, sad face, okay? And more people complied when they saw the sad face, and they slowed down. People react more to emotional triggers than they do just to a number. They don't care as much about the number. But then they see the sad face, and they slow down. More on this is going to actually be from Volker Hirsch later today at around 4. I recommend, if you're interested in that bit, to watch his presentation. Anything else? Because I know I'm out of time. We're good? Find me after. Okay, thank you.